Tony was like, he was so influential with the Branksters that after he passed away, they gradually disbanded. They start coming over to the hood, and they all became Neighborhood Crips. Today they don't have the Encanto Park Branksters, but they had a mark because they start getting pretty deep over there, and they they also feuded at one point with the Veils, a known Latino gang over there called the Veils, Barrio Encanto Locos. But you know, the Veils, we all grew up with them too. You know, we went to school with them, and we knew all of the essays and stuff because we all grew up with them as kids. I mean, all the Veils that later became bangers, I've been to their houses and used to go over to their houses. They used to come over to my house. I first got introduced to Mexican food over a dude's house from the Veils named Paco, rest in peace, Darren Martinez. I used to hang with Darren Martinez from the Veils, and he took me over to his house. His mom made some chorizo and other stuff. I would go over to his house and eat over at his house, and that's when I first even tasted Mexican food before I even went to taco shops and stuff. So we was kind of cool with them, but when they got into it, when the Veils got into it with the Encanto, it was kind of like we had all grown up together. So I think it was a little fight that happened, and then I heard one of them pass by the park one day and shot a couple times in the air, and then it was a fight again later on that week. You know, it was a quick little war, but it was pretty well controlled and kind of died out. You know, it never got serious. I never moved over to the 40s from Encanto. At that time, I still lived in Encanto, but I started going to jail. I started getting in trouble. I started going to juvenile hall. You know, I started getting in trouble. I ended up going to YA, all that shit. My family still lived in Encanto. I mean, since we was kids, we grew up there. So it was like family still got the house in Encanto, you know, but I'm all over the place. I done moved out now. I'm, you know, living with my girlfriend, you know, over in the hood. I lived in the hood a couple times, you know, with my girlfriend back then at the time, you know, but my family still was grounded, you know, in Encanto, you know.
So how old were you when you started? So when you were hanging out with the 40s, was it already Neighborhood Rollin 40s Crip?
Yeah.
It was already that when you got
there? Yeah. It was that. I got there in 1977. It wasn't that too long before I got there because there was a lot of question on exactly when the hood started. You know, a lot of people say 74, some say 75. You know, some people say later than that. Some people say, you know, 70, 75 or 76. But I came to the hood in 77, and I basically watched most of the people come in the hood. It was people there before me, but not too many. There's a lot of OGs that came after me that, even though they are OGs, that I was still there before them. But there are a lot of people that was there before me. So I'm an OG, but there are other OGs that was there before me, you know. So I take a back seat to them in the fact that they probably lived in the hood, you know, just like I lived in Encanto. They lived in the hood already, you know, and just end up being there before me, you know, in that way. But a lot of us, when it comes to actual gangbanging, just because you actually lived there and stuff before, it doesn't really, your participation was really what counted back then. So you could live in the hood and still not be as active as I was. You know, I was hella active.
Okay, so I find it interesting that even though you got there in 77, it was already there, there is disagreement by the older guys older than you, whether it was 74, 75, or 76.
Yeah.
Why is there so much disagreement about the founding year?
Because, man, to be honest, there's a lot of things that transpired when I came that I saw that there were things going on, and I don't feel like it had started too long, you know, after I got there. You know, I don't believe that the hood was around like 5 years before me, because I came in 77, and they say that the hood started in 75, which would make it 2 years. But I don't, maybe a year before me, because really the co-founders was the ones that was really active. The founders and the co-founders, and probably wasn't nothing but about 10 or 15 of them. My running buddy was Marvin Miller. And this is who I ran with when I gangbanged, and he's a co-founder. He was there from the beginning. So he told me, basically how everything started, and that it was just only like 10 of them, So it was just about 10 people, bro. You know what I'm saying? That was doing all that, in 75. So by the time the OGs came around, all of us, we couldn't have been banging, in elementary school, because all the OGs, they my age. So in 75, we was in like elementary school, you know what I'm saying? So we all OGs, and the OGs are the ones who actually carried the set to make it what it is today. The founders wasn't deep enough to be what we was. They just gave it the name. It was like 10 of them. If my homeboy Marvin, he said when he got back, he went to jail. He said when he got out and came over to the hood and seen us, he was like, damn, who was all these dudes? Where in the hell did they come from? What is this? We was like, it's on,
So all the research you've done, what year do you think it is? You're going with the 1975 year?
Yeah, I would personally go with it because of my research, and for my involvement in direct contact with some brothers from LA who knew the history too, who knew Donnie Ramsey, who started our set. Now Donnie Ramsey started the Neighborhood Crips, but Donnie Ramsey was original Harlem Crip from LA, and he claimed the Harlem Rollin 30s. Now, when I was in YA in 1980, it was two Bloods in YA with me and my homeboy Trey Dog, rest in peace. Me and Trey Dog was in YA together. And it was two Bloods from Fruittown Brims. One named KC, Kent Christensen from Fruittown Brims, and Baby Boy from Fruittown Brims. Baby Boy was on swole. He looked like he just stepped out of Muscle Fitness magazine. He was the first brother I seen that buff, at that younger age. And they told us, they said, we know Donnie Ramsey. They said, we know Donnie Ramsey. They said Donnie Ramsey is he was from Harlem up here. And they said, but he has some brothers. One of his brothers was from Fruittown, And so I don't know what year they came down here, but I remember Fruittown Brims being written on the wall over in our hood. Years ago, when the shit first started, we had Fruittown Brim written on the side of the store. It stayed spray painted on that store for a long time, and I always wondered about it. So they told us in YA that somebody in particular had claimed Fruittown Brims and was playing around with it. So when they came down here to San Diego, they wrote it on the wall, but Donnie was locked up at the time. And they said when Donnie got out, he was like, oh, hell no, this ain't no Brims over here. We Crips. And he took control, which means that who knows, if Donnie had been gone for a long time, that influence could have spilled over. Everybody got something going on in their set, when it comes to the history. There have been some transformations and some things that have happened in the history because people were fighting for identity. People didn't know where they was going at the time, so anything could have happened. That's why I don't really, argue or say, oh man, they used to be this or they used to be, a lot of shit used to be all kind of shit before the identity was established. People played around with everything. They didn't know until everybody, and I come from an era where everybody was searching for identities and it wasn't established yet. People were still trying to determine where they was from and what they was gonna claim and stuff. It's a lot of people from my era that used to claim other shit, you know.
So when Danny Ramsey came down to San Diego, where did he actually live?
Donnie. He
Donnie.
moved to the coast first. Yeah, they lived in the coast, and they moved to the coast, and they lived in the coast for a while, and then they moved over to the hood. You know.
And most everyone agrees he's the one that's started Neighborhood 40's
Yeah,
Crip.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
how much older is he of you?
He's Donnie was about 4 years older or so than me, and he had been he was well established. He's like an original from L.A. because all the people from L.A. know him that I met up with. Like I have mentioned before, I was cellmates in Chino with Lamar Holiday. And everybody knows the Holidays. His father, Doc Holiday, was the what they call the supreme commander of the Black Guerrilla family. So Doc Holiday was the head man of the Black Guerrilla family. And his son, Lamar, was my cellmate in Chino. And Lamar, you know, he used to imitate Donnie. He used to say, "Oh, you from Dago?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm from Neighborhood." He's like, "Man, Donnie," he's like, "You got a homeboy?" I was like, "Yeah, Donnie started the hood." You know, he's like, "Donnie went down there and started." Donnie was from our set, Harlem. And because they do Harlem like that. But that's was how we did the hood when it first started. Then we added the finger to make an N for neighborhood. But it was like that first because Donnie got that H from Harlem and he made that H stand for hood down in San Diego. And Lamar used to say, "Man, I know big head ass Donnie Ramsey. Yeah, that's the homeboy from Harlem and shit. So he down there, you know, yeah." So see, a lot of my history that I got didn't necessarily come from San Diego. It came from me being introduced to a lot of LA Crips and Bloods at a young age. You know, I was a teenager when I met all the Crips and Bloods from LA, man. I was a teenager and they told me and gave me a lot of the history.